why would one person convert from one faith to another? I'm going to give you certain guidelines, okay? First of all, you are never going to convert from one faith to another if it means a decrease in social or economic status. Okay? If you notice when Islam will come to India, it's not the Hindu Brahmins or Kshatriyas, the upper classes who have life good, that convert to Islam. It's usually the Sudras, the Dalits, the Vaisyas, the people who are basically on the lower end of the spectrum, who are basically kept in a caste environment where they have no room for upward mobility. However, Islam does not have a caste system. Islam is not an ascribed status system. All Muslims are considered equally loved by Allah, and it doesn't matter who your father was. If you're a person of ambition and skill, you can rise and to a better level. And so, in effect, if somebody already has it good, obviously, they're not going to want to adopt Islam. So for Zoroastrian magi or some of the Sassanid government functionaries, they are less likely to become Islamic converts. Okay? Now, another thing. There are some ways in which a person might want to convert. If a religion is similar enough to the one you're familiar with, you're more likely to accept it. Meaning if a religion is too foreign from what you originally believe in, the more unfamiliar it is, the more likely you are to reject that. I'm going to give you an example, okay? When the Spanish had colonized the Americas, and they wanted to basically get the Native Americans to convert to Christianity. What they would do in Mesoamerica is they'd say, we see that you believe in a maize goddess, this black virgin goddess. This is actually the Virgin Mary, the Virgin Mother. So this is the Virgin of Guadalupe or whatever. You go into Nigeria. And you talk about the Yoruba storm god and warrior god, Chongo. You go, that's St. George, St. Michael. What they're doing is they're creating a type of syncretism, a common belief, so that people are more likely to accept the new faith if it seems familiar to the older one. And there are elements, of course, of Zoroastrianism that are found in Islam that will make certain people convert to Islam easier. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how Islam is going to treat the faith that it encounters in the Sassanid Empire, but I'm going to tell you that conversion will take place for different reasons, but for the most part, it's going to be if the religion is close enough to what the Iranians believe, where it won't cause them any psychic discomfort to adopt, it's not too alien, too strange, and also the fact that if a person becomes a Muslim, they might get certain social and economic privileges in doing so. Now, in order to address this, I want to basically tell you that the Arabs did not believe in a forced conversion. To force someone to become a Muslim is like forcing a woman that you like to love you or a man you like to love you. It's not going to happen, okay? Basically, if they don't love you, they don't love you. When you come to Allah, you should come for the right reasons, because you love Him and you want to obey His will, okay? So the idea of a conversion by the sword is anathema to a lot of Muslims. Did it take place in the history of Islam? Yes. But you have episodes of forced conversion in other faiths as well. Okay? And generally speaking, it's not the sword that would spread Islam. Islam will conquer by the sword. It does not convert by the sword. Be very careful. Okay? Now, for the people who have sacred scripture that the Muslims recognize, namely the Jews and the Christians, the Jews with what the Christians call the Old Testament, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and associated prophetic writings, the Muslims see that as legit. Okay? For the New Testament, outside of the divinity of Christ and certain things associated with it, the Muslims see that as legitimate. So the Jews and the Christians will be referred to as dhimmi, or people of the book. They have sacred scripture, which the Muslims see as valid but incomplete because they didn't adopt the Quran. Okay? Now, the way that the Muslims see it is that the dhimmi should pay taxes, and there will be a head tax called the jizya. And this is a capitation tax. It's a tax on non-Muslims, especially the dhimmi. Because, what's that? It's a capitation tax, a head tax. There are problems for Muslims, though, in other faiths. First of all, the Muslims are aggressively anti-polytheists. So polytheists do not come within the rubric of dhimmi. They do not have sacred scriptures, and they do one of the worst things you could possibly do. Basically contest Tawheed, the unity of God, the oneness of God, the oneness of Allah. That's about the worst thing you could do. Islam is a fiercely monotheistic faith. Therefore, the people that are polytheists are going to be treated pretty harshly by the Muslims. Originally, the Zoroastrians fall into that category because the Arab Muslims, their understanding of Zoroastrianism was kind of jaundiced. I'll explain to you how. The Muslims believe that the Zoroastrians were polytheistic because they included Angra Mainyu, the evil god, up there with Ahura Mazda, the good god. So they're thinking they're recognizing another god besides one. Therefore, they're polytheists. Another thing is, and let me complete this and we'll get to you. Another thing is the fact that the Zoroastrians use fire in their worship, and to the Muslims, they see this as worshiping the fire, not using the fire as an ancillary way to worship Ahura Mazda, like lighting a candle in church. Okay? Sarah, you had a question or comment, and then we'll get to Pamela.
I was under the impression that Ahura Mazda also created the Angra Mainyu, right?
Yes. In one version of Zoroastrianism, one version of the Mazdian faith, and then there's another that makes them cosmic twins. Okay? From the perspective of the Muslims, when they hear about this strange dualism, they see it, Sarah, as polytheistic, and they hate that. Okay? So Zoroastrians originally have it bad, and there's another reason why I have it bad, and it's not just theological. It's because the Sassanids were a Zoroastrian faith. And if you're going to overthrow the Zoroastrians to do that, it means you have to get them to jettison their official state religion. Okay? So originally the Zoroastrians were treated pretty badly. Then after a while they get accepted as dhimmi, people of the book. The Muslims will accept the Zend-Avesta as a legitimate scripture. However, that's not going to last long.